Hi dear doers! Submitting a tax report is a legal requirement common to all businesses, pink cars included. Depending on the country you're in, Odoo offers a variety of solutions to fill in your tax report. Belgium, for example, uses a grid-based system, but other countries may work differently. In that case, you can use the integrated APIs such as EVTax or TaxCloud to fill in your tax report. Additionally, Odoo allows the user to manage who can modify the tax report and even set a log date to prevent further modification once the report has been submitted. First, let's understand how taxes and accounts are handled. Let's take the customer invoice as an example. The total amount of the invoice is 121 euros, which is the total amount of what our customer owes us, and therefore booked in the account receivable. However, 121 is actually split into two elements, a base amount of 100 euros and a tax amount of 21. The 100 represents my actual income and must be booked in the income account, whereas the 21 euros is a tax charged to my customer and must be booked in the tax received account. The opposite behavior happens for the vendor bills. So, throughout the fiscal period, the tax received and the tax paid accounts will increase after each bill or invoice that we will book in our accounting. As we are closing this fiscal period, we want to balance or settle our tax accounts so that the new period can start at zero. With this done, we can now calculate our taxes by simply doing the sum of the taxes received and the taxes paid, and the remaining amount will go to the VAT current account. If it's positive, we have to pay back this amount to the government, and if it's negative, then we can claim it. Now that we understand how this works, let's see it from within Odoo. Okay guys, let's go in the accounting application, and the first thing we're going to do is create a dedicated journal for tax closing entries. You can of course use an existing one if you want to instead. So here we're going to create a new journal. The type should be miscellaneous, and here I'm going to assign a short code. Once this is done, I need to assign it as the default journal for our tax closing entries. So I need to go in the settings of the application. From here, you see the tax return periodicity feature. The first thing you're going to configure is the periodicity. So depending on your country's rules and the business size, you're going to choose either of these, one of these periodicities. And here in the journal, I'm putting the tax closing. Don't forget to save. Once this is done, the second thing you need to check is the tax accounts. So if you click on configure your tax accounts, you see for each tax group, I have a default tax payable and default tax receivable. So these enable us to automate the tax closing entry when we generate it from the tax report. Let's go in the reporting section and see what our tax report looks like. So from here, you see we have the Belgian tax report, but of course, depending on each localization, you will have a dedicated tax report. I want to close the first quarter of the year, so you can see from the filter, the date filters, I have chosen the last quarter, but you can even do custom date periods if you want to. From the tax report view, you can export it in PDF, in Excel, but also have an XML or any dedicated format enabling you to electronically submit your tax report. And once this is done, of course, and your tax report is complete, you can click on Closing Entry. Odoo will automatically generate a draft entry with all our tax payable and tax receivables of the periods completely settled, so you can see it here. And the remaining amount will go in one of our default accounts that we saw in the settings. So here, the remaining is 42 in my current account. You see that your journal is correctly the tax closing. If you forgot to fill in an invoice or a bill, and you already generated the closing entry but didn't post it yet, you can just decide to refresh, and automatically the draft entry will refresh itself. Now that everything's ready, I just need to post the entry. Automatically, the entry is going to be booked. A PDF will be generated for that specific period, and Odoo will finally close the tax period, making sure that nobody can invoice or bill and adapt the tax report that is already closed. So to check that, you need to go in the accounting section, and in the log dates that you see that for the tax report log date, we have already the end of March completely closed.
Eva, I just made a mistake. I forgot to register my transaction and I already logged my tax report. What can I do? Can you help me?
Well, yes, Tom, no worries. Even if you have a log date set in your accounting, if you decide to book a new entry, but prior to that date, Odoo will automatically postpone the invoice or the bill date up to the open period. So if we create a vendor bill, for example, so let's book your forgotten transaction. I'm going to put here the vendor, and let's say here, let's put March as it's in the closed period. Automatically, you see that if, since I have decided to put a bill date prior to the log date, Odoo is warning me saying that the accounting date being set prior to the tax report date, the 31st of March, it will be changed to the next open period, and automatically Odoo will choose the end of the following month, so end of April. So let's say here, let's book for 100. If I confirm the vendor bill, automatically you see that the bill date doesn't change because it's still the date of the document, but the accounting date, though, is in April, so in an open tax report period. So super easy, super convenient. That's all for me in this video. Thank you for watching. Ciao a tutti.